So I've had the iPhone 15 Pro Max since launch day, and I also had the Galaxy S24 Ultra since launch day. In this episode, I'm going to share with you 10 reasons why I think my 15 Pro Max is better than my Galaxy S24 Ultra. Now, this has been one of the toughest video scripts I had to come up with because I really had to dive into why I thought the experience was better on the 15 Pro Max, because really the Galaxy S24 Ultra to me has been the better hardware, giving you more zoom on the camera, is giving you Galaxy AI as well in the software. So it was really tough. It's going to be much easier to make the counter video when I discuss why the S24 Ultra is better than the 15 Pro Max. So stay subscribed, stay tuned. It's coming next. Okay, so for the first reason, it is the feel in the hand. Overall, I really have been thinking about this a lot. When I use these consistently, not just for a video when we're kind of comparing them, after a while, especially, a lot of times when I'm reading at night and stuff, and after a while, the Galaxy S24 Ultra definitely starts to feel a little bit just very rectangular. It doesn't feel as nice as the rounded corners. And I know Samsung has the Galaxy S24 Plus, which I also have. That's the one I usually go to when I want to feel like I have the 15 Pro Max type Samsung. But the problem with that one to me is it doesn't really feel unique to them. It feels like a copycat phone of the iPhone. And it also doesn't feel to me on the S24 Plus like it's as good as the iPhone. This feels like the more closer competitor to the iPhone 15 Pro Max and the S24 Ultra. So I wish their S24 Plus was with the best cameras, the best everything, like the Galaxy S24 Ultra has, and then I think it would be a little bit closer there, but you could see that shape and size is kind of taller. It's just a bigger, thicker type of body there for the Galaxy S24 Ultra, and you definitely notice that after a while. So that's just something I wanted to point out. That's the first reason I find the iPhone 15 Pro Max experience a little bit better. But again, if you love Samsung, they have the S24 Plus to give you that similar feel. Okay, the next reason is the overall smoother operating system. Now, I'm not saying that Samsung's operating system is not smooth, but it's actually very smooth, smoother than ever before, honestly, on the Galaxy S24 Ultra. But the thing is that the iPhone's overall experience to me has been a little bit more consistent, especially like in the Play Store. It can get a little choppy sometimes on the Samsung. Also, a couple other areas can get a little choppy, but in my time using it, I'm really thinking about my experiences with both, and I just gotta say the iPhone seemingly has been the more consistent day-to-day smooth feel. They're very much closing the gap though this year. This is probably gonna be the last year I could probably say that. I feel like Samsung's just getting better and better every time, and this is my favorite year ever for Samsung devices, especially the S line. They just feel so good now. It's just unbelievable compared to before with the 120 hertz. They literally feel like the same as iPhones, basically. It's just there's a couple of times when I just feel like the Samsung chops a little bit more in certain areas, especially when you first boot it up, when you're in certain applications. I just feel like the overall iPhone experience is a little bit smoother day to day. It's hard to notice until you experience both. But Samsung is really closing the gap, and I think we're only maybe one iteration away from basically exactly the same. They're basically there now, but there's just a little bit more refinement they can do in animations, a little bit more polish they can do, but it's like maybe one iteration away. That's about it. It's very, very good though here still on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. The third way the iPhone 15 Pro Max is the better experience for me is the camera results. I feel like they're closer to that of an actual camera, like an actual Sony camera. For example, they don't tend to over sharpen or anything like that. However, they can show a little bit more noise depending on if you're zooming way in, but that would be pretty hard to see unless you're really, really pixel peeping. But overall, I do think for those of you like to edit raw photos and just kind of have a more camera-like result, I think the iPhone is better. But Samsung has a really sharp, vivid photo that they do produce, and it's also very good. So you're going to like the Samsung as well. I just think it tends to err on the cooler side for me, and also a little bit over sharpened sometimes. Some people really like that look. It's very good for posting on social media and stuff like that. So this might actually be the better phone. And I also prefer the Samsung for the front-facing camera. But the actual camera results, I think I would go with the iPhone if I was trying to replace my actual camera. But if you're looking for more zoom, versatility, and features, the Samsung blows away this iPhone. It really does. That's just something I'm going to have to mention in the 10 reasons why Samsung beats the iPhone. So again, be subscribed for that one. So Apple's updates are a little bit more consistent now. I actually wanted to save this update for this video to talk about this. I'm going to do it after the video. This came out a few days ago. I think it was either a few days ago or last week. It just came out. It was very recent. I did it on all my other Apple products, but I saved it for this one. These updates on the iPhone, they just roll in much more consistently across the iOS, platform. Samsung's rollout of the display bug feature, well, it wasn't really a bug, but it was like not as vivid. That thing took like a month. I was waiting and waiting and waiting. And then when it comes out, it doesn't roll out to everyone at the exact same time. You got to refresh it multiple times. When Apple launches an update, it comes to all devices basically exactly at the same time. There is a few regions that might be waiting maybe 15 minutes a little bit later, but overall, it's pretty consistent. So their software updates, while not the longest in the industry promised anymore, they are definitely still some of the most consistent and most frequent actually out there. So this is still a strong suit, I feel like, for Apple. I feel like the day-to-day experience, which is my next reason, number 5, is a little bit more minimal and easy to use, and definitely quite boring, I would say, if you're trying to really stimulate yourself with tons of features and fun. This phone, you would have to really dive into some apps to have more fun. The actual operating system kind of blends in with your life once you get used to it, and it kind of feels like an appliance in the background of your life, kind of like a refrigerator or, a TV. It's just there, it just works, and you don't really think about it much anymore. But what you do think about, what you do enjoy is how consistent that is. And I feel like it goes unappreciated on the iPhone, how great this operating system is, until you use something that is worse, then you'll want to go back to your iPhone. And you'll see people in the comments say that all the time. I had this and then I got this phone and now I want to go back to my iPhone. This is ridiculous. That's probably not the case with the S24 Ultra. This phone will also give you that nice, consistent feel day to day. So I don't think that's a stronger case over the S24 Ultra. But definitely, I do think it's one of the ways this phone is still better is that it's more minimal. So just a more minimal, easier, I would say easier on the brain experience. My brain feels like I have to think about where features are a little bit more, and I got to do a little bit more, digging around on the Samsung phone. This phone just kind of feels easy and minimal. It just feels like anybody could pick it up and use it, even though they don't really know much about tech. Whereas I feel like you have to be a little bit more tech savvy to really get the ins and outs of the Samsung device. The next one is Dynamic Island. Now, I typically just show the timers in the video because usually I'm not ordering a Uber, a Lyft, or Uber Eats or anything like that, but Dynamic Island is starting to get updated by those applications and other applications where it actually becomes useful. And this is better than the punch hole display in terms of functionality. Aesthetically, it's absolutely terrible compared to the punch hole, which is very small and out of the way. But the punch hole doesn't really do anything. It's just there. So I have to give it to Apple here for at least making some functionality out of that blotch up there, that pill up there on top of the display. So I do think Dynamic Island is better than the Samsung when it comes to having some functionality up there. Some people will argue, well, you can just put that in a notifications tray. That's really nothing on an Android phone. Yes, you can dig around deep, but I think it kind of gives it its own unique look, its own separation from other phones, and Apple really likes doing that. They like separating themselves from the crowd, and that's kind of the newer thing day version of that, the Dynamic Island. You can kind of notice from a mile away if you look at someone's phone, if there's a Dynamic Island, that's an iPhone. So it's pretty much separator from Android devices. So Apple still has iMessage and FaceTime, and these applications are still one of the strong suits of iPhone, and I don't see Apple allowing these to come to Android anytime soon, because that would basically take away one of the main things that draws you to an iPhone, and that is iMessage and FaceTime. So FaceTime, iMessage, the whole kind of like Apple ecosystem experience. While sounds like, you keep hearing people say this over and over again in video after video, the truth of the matter is after experiencing both of these phones, it's still, when you have family and friends using those platforms, even though it's been years and years, we keep talking about this, it's still a stronger suit for this for this 15 Pro Max. It really is. Like, you're going to think about that when you're not on this phone. Like, man, this is not as smooth of a messaging experience. And while that's going to improve with the RCS compatibility, you can now even thumbs up certain messages, but still, I feel like the iMessage experience is very, very cohesive and sticky between iPhone to iPhone user, iPad to iPhone user, Mac to iPhone user. It's really still one of the least, maybe one of the last iPhone strong suits or advantages over the Samsung. So I talked about how this feels more comfortable in my experience, but it also feels thinner and lighter. So while both titanium, they both feel very light for their size. They're both still heavier phones. The 15 Pro Max feels much lighter than the 14 Pro Max. And the Galaxy feels definitely a little chunkier, a little bit heavier, and with a case, it really expands that. So for me, the more comfortable phone, as earlier I mentioned, is the iPhone. But it's also a little bit better if you like lighter and thinner. So I would go with the 15 Pro Max there. The iPhone 15 Pro Max was also a little bit better to me in the battery life when pushing both phones. The Samsung in some cases actually lasted longer, but the iPhone still had like maybe 30 minutes longer runtime overall. But here's the truth. If you kind of like turn down the resolution on the Samsung and then go ahead and turn on dark mode, tweak around with like put it on 1080 full HD. I think I'm a little bit too bright on the screen there. Hold on. Put it on like 1080 HD. The Samsung is definitely going to last a little bit longer. So it's really quite impressive on both of them. And they're both pretty much neck and neck. But I do think, surprisingly, even though the iPhone has a much smaller battery than the Samsung, it can definitely last just about as long, and in some cases, longer. It still also has better standby time than the Samsung, but not so much different when it comes to their overall actual battery. It's pretty darn close, but still slightly better, I would say, overall, in heavier use. Like maybe 30 minutes or so, not a big deal of difference. I said in a previous video that the Samsung was better, but after using them a while, they're pretty darn close. But the Samsung could overtake this phone in battery life when I put it on full HD. And if you really want to overtake it, go to HD Plus, which is kind of lame. It really lowers the resolution. But it's still a strong suit here for the 15 Pro Max. I've been telling you, it's an experience thing I had to look for because the iPhone is really hard to say it's better than the Samsung S24 Ultra. So I looked to my experiences, and one of the experiences that was better was the Face ID. And why was it better? Not because Samsung doesn't have some really good technological chops. They do with the in-display ultrasonic fingerprint sensor. The thing is, though, when my hands are dirty, I definitely would miss this. And when they were wet, or when you're wearing gloves, I would definitely miss this. So I think the convenience factor is a little bit better still on the iPhone, but the Samsung is still really a nice feature. But I just found Face ID in my experience to be a little bit more convenient. But there's a time when this is also inconvenient as well, and that's at nighttime. When you have the screen dim, it can't even see you sometimes. So that's pretty lame. But overall, I found that I would not need gloves. Doesn't matter if my hands are wet, Face ID would just work. So to be honest with you, this was very tough. But I still feel like these are the two best phones on the market today. And I feel like they do have strengths and weaknesses over each other. And either way you go, you are absolutely a winner this year. And those are all the reasons why I think you're a winner if you pick the iPhone. Those are my experience based. I can't come over here and try to say the display is better because Samsung's brighter. I can't come over here and find features from a hardware perspective because Samsung pretty much one-upped them in every kind of way. So that's not how it is. I think it's more about some people are going to find the experience better on the iPhone, and that's what I talked about mostly today. And I'll talk about why I think the experience is better on the Samsung in my next episode. So stay tuned. Those are my reasons, 10 reasons why the 15 Pro Max is better than the S24 Ultra. Let me know your thoughts down below. Let's discuss it. What you want to go with, or if you want to go with an older iPhone or S series phone, let us know down below. The next one's going to be much easier to make because there's so many features on the Samsung though. I'll catch you on the next one. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace. I said thumbs up. Peace. Actually, peace. See you later.